Okay, sorry for the interruption. So it's imperative for us to be able to transfer this down the generation and make sure that we have real men in our societies that are able to uphold some of these virtues that we're trying to preach. The topic we've been discussing is why men don't talk. We discussed this previously in our last session, but we couldn't exhaust the conversation, and I think it was thought that we should continue from where we stopped. We still have our resource persons that were part of the last meeting still joining us, and would have them still do justice to some of the things that we couldn't deal with at the last meeting. One of them, and that's going to be the point where I would like us to launch this morning. There was a question from the last meeting about, hope this kind of forum is not a means for us to condition men not to speak up. Men are undergoing so much, abuse, trouble, and so many things like that. And this forum might be seen, as it were, to be conditioning men to just keep quiet and be docile, okay, rather than speak up for their rights and things like that, which, of course, we try to just touch because we're running out of time, and we just mentioned brief that, no, that's not the intent. But we would want to start from there and launch from there and, grow from there. We have speakers in our midst. That will be doing justice to this. And one of them is Alhaji Aziz Ola Ojetola. He was with us the last time, and he's still here again today. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Pastor Ben Adikugbe as well. He's going to be joining us. He's also here as well with us. Thank you for joining once again. And the last but not the least is Mr. Salaman Yamelgo, also here with us again from the last session. And we will be looking at some of these things again. And please, maybe in 1 minute, I would like, in no particular order, we can please, I want our resource persons to introduce themselves so that we get to meet you again for those that are joining for the very, very first time. I would like to go by introducing myself. Temitope Olukunle is my name, as you can see on the screen. I'm an advocate for the new to Canada community, the Black community. I work as a mobile mortgage manager with Salvos Credit Union, the biggest credit union in the province of Alberta. My job is to help people find responsible solutions to their home financing and other financing needs, and also help our community grow our wealth. That's my primary focus. And I would like to pass it on, and please, in no particular order, please, our resource persons, kindly feel free to introduce yourself and let's get to meet you. Thank you.
Oh, hello, everyone. I am Pastor Ben Adikugbe, pastor of a church, mainly online at the moment, Genesis Life Center. Married with 5 children. The next one is Mr. Salamani. Is he there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just want to, in Africa, we give priority to elders. So, but if I can, I will do it. Hi, everyone. My name is Salamani Yamelgo, and I'm a team building facilitator and trainer, motivational speaker, and mentor in the community. What I do is I help teams unleash their full potential to achieve more success. So I do that through workshops, team building activity, team retreats, and then I do speak about different topics based on my background. I actually call myself the farmer son, based on nature and then what I've learned throughout my life. So I'm happy to be here to learn from all of you and share what I have, so that we can do together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And Alhaji Ojetola, are you there?
Yeah, I don't think he has joined yet. So
Oh, okay. All right, that's
continue.
fine. Yeah, we will just continue from here. Please, just for those that are joining us for the first time, just for you to be aware of how we go about this, we want to try to keep to time. So we're encouraging us to contribute early. If you want to speak up, feel free, raise your hand. We're going to get to you and you can have your turn. If you have questions, you can always drop in the chat box. That is also very helpful for us to read out the questions and we get answers like on the fly as we get along. So please, you want to keep these things in mind. Yeah, so I'm going to start from the last point I mentioned from the last meeting. For those that were part of it, that was the point at which we ended, and we couldn't go deeper into some of those things that were raised. And I would like to start with, Pastor Ben. One of the questions that came was about how some of the things we're sharing, right, helping our men to become better, could be misconstrued to mean that we are conditioning them to be docile. Okay. It was interesting. I can't remember exactly who brought that up, and it was something we couldn't touch on. But I know you tried to speak on it briefly before we ended the last session, and we want to hear from you and Mr. Salaman. What are your thoughts? Is it true that men don't speak up, but when we have forums like this where we're training our men to be better versions of themselves, it could also be seen as, you're conditioning them again to be the very same thing that we're trying to help them to, help them not to be. What are your thoughts, please?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think one of the major issues that we got to look at from that point of view is really when you are always looking out for justification, you're always looking out for justification. You don't see the full picture properly. I think one way I always explain this to at least some couples is, look at it this way, that you live in a neighborhood, but there's a fence between the both of you. And you want to, you hear certain noise come out from the other side of the fence. One of the ways that what this forum is trying to get us to do is, you can't speculate on what's happening on the other side of the fence. So what you want to do is to allow the other person to lower that fence enough so that you can have a full picture, and then you can then react to the information that you're receiving that you may have heard by way of sound, or so that you don't form an impression, because whatever you see or your impressions inform the way you react to certain situations. But once you have a full idea of what's going on or why that person is reacting that way, then, so what I would say, what this is all about is getting the other person to lower their fence so you can have a better view of what's happening on the other side of the fence. And then you'll be able to react in an appropriate manner, which also benefits yourself.
Okay. So if I hear you correctly, so you trying to be level-headed is not the same thing as saying, just be dumb and be, inactive or inert, right? And just absorb all whatever and anything that comes, your way. Is that what I hear you say?
Absolutely.
Right.
So you react based on what information, not based on speculation.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Mr. Salaman, can we have your perspective on this? You've heard Pastor Ben. Do you share the same thoughts, or are there things you think we are missing for us to come up with that notion where we think, when we're encouraging our men to be properly behaved, we're actually indirectly conditioning them to be docile? Is that what it means?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think we had the opportunity of talking about that last time. And, in reality, when we talk like that, everyone can take it both ways. Like, oh, if we're talking about this topic, it conditions men to not speak up instead of being assertive. But I would go back to what docile means. So, and then what are the opposites? Sometimes it's good to be docile. It's docile doesn't mean you don't speak up, but it could mean at some circumstances you don't need to speak up all the time. You have to pick the right moment to do and learn. It's a process. But the opposite of those sides to be assertive. Of course, if you want to speak, we would like to have men who are assertive, who can speak effectively, communicate effectively, and then, but to be dominant is the other opposite of those sides, right? Is if we have someone who is really dominant, and then in the family or in society, it might lead to a kind of like a challenging situation where your voice is not heard anymore. So if people start not to come to you for the issue, or in the family, children or wife or spouse stop coming to you and regarding the challenges, no matter how you are, if you are docile or prominent or certain, that means there is a big issue. So I think there is a balance where we should speak up and then where we should quiet, listen. And the fact is, sometimes we're not right too. So we have to be able to see. I think here I'm not right. And in that sense, yeah, we have to keep quiet.
Thank you so very much for that wonderful contribution. Just to backtrack a little bit, I know we have people that are joining us for the very first time. We're talking about why men don't talk. That's what we're talking about this morning. And just to draw a background, it's a series that we've been having, and it's important and imperative for us to go over some of the things we talked about the previous session and, building from there. That's what we're just trying to do, so you understand where we're coming from. Why men don't talk is a topic. This is part 2. And part of the takeaway from the first session was what we're trying to dig a little deeper into. There was a question that came up during the last meeting saying, oh, these things are looking like we're conditioning people not to talk, whereas we are saying we want people to talk. And learning from Pastor Ben and Mr. Salaman, we're realizing that, oh, you can actually talk, but how do you do it, right? You want to, and I'm going to quickly paint an analogy that I learned, growing up. So if you have a bottle of water, you want to feel like a narrow bottle of water has a narrow neck, and you want to pour water into the bottle. How do you do it? If you take the water, and I'm just going to use this as an example. So I have a bottle here, right? If I want to pour water into this bottle, if I just take, a bowl of water and I pour, right, all of a sudden, what happens? Majority of the water will spill on the, will not get into the bottle, right? Majority will actually fall outside of the bottle. But if I draw the analogy that I've learned from, Mr. Salaman and Pastor Ben, what they're saying to us this morning is, if I want to fill this bottle, the best way to do it is to take the bowl. When I'm doing the pouring, I pour it gently, okay? The more gentle I pour, the likelihood of having 90% or 95% of the water, or even 100% of the water enter this bottle, the chances are very higher. Is that correct? That's exactly what we're talking about. So it's not a way of saying, oh, you pouring the water gently doesn't mean you're docile. That's not what it means. It only means you're careful enough to know that you have so much resources, right, that can impact this bottle, and you do not want those resources to waste. And that's why you're doing it in a gentle manner, so that the resources can get into the bottle where you actually want it to be. Okay, and that's exactly what we're trying to, pass across this morning. Thank you so much once again. Please pass on the questions on the chat box. Again, if you're new to this forum this morning, we want to give you an opportunity to be a part of this. We're asking the question, why men don't talk? Why men don't talk? If you would like to contribute, raise your hand and we will get to you. Back to Pastor Ben again. Haven't clarified the fact that we are not encouraging people to just shut up. We want them to speak up. We want to learn again. What is the role of temperament in all of this? People are different, okay? People are different. People approach things differently. Some are what is the role of temperament in all of this, and how can we work on ourselves to getting the best outcome during our conversations?
Well, temperament is really, it's one of, how can I put it? The Bible, I'm a pastor, so I may use the Bible every now and again, talks about the tongue, how it's like an unbridled horse. I think temperament plays a very important part. But one of the things that we need to understand, anything that is emotional can also be controlled. Not fully controlled, but it could be the opposite. You see, the word temperament is taken from a word where we say temper something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you temper something, actually, it's to calm it down. Mm. So the way to balance. So temperament has a very, very important role to play in these things. But temperament is also tied to whatever you've been through that day, or it's also tied to certain things that trigger. There's some certain trigger points that you could find out with somebody could be in a very good mood, and it takes one little trigger for that mood to change. And that trigger could come by way of words or by way of situations that have happened. Or it could be a buildup. But in answer to your question, temperament plays a very, very big role.
Very big role. Mr. Salaman, do you share the same opinion as well?
Of course. In this particular topic, maybe sometimes I'm like, am I the right person to talk about it? Because I have kind of like really high temper when things get when I not under control, but when I see things, okay, I'm not in control here. But instead of we have to be aware of who we are. So one of my mentors said that when he got married, he was saying that you take care of me, then I take care of you. And down the road, he realized that he has to change the way he sees things. So I will take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. That being said, is I have to know who I am, and then take like a short analysis about myself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And then what are the opportunities, room to grow as an individual? And then what could be the threat in terms of my growth, in terms of achieving purpose in life? But the reality is most of us, including me, we don't take time for that. Then we react based on we don't anticipate, we react. And when we hit a point where we can reactive more than proactive, then it's difficult to control ourselves.
Yeah.
In terms of self-control. That means I would maybe say, number one, get to learn and to go in, take a self-SWOT analysis. And then to be honest, I have to be honest. When I look in the mirror, am I really true to myself? And where are the rooms where I can? Then I can help other people. Otherwise, it's gonna be repetitive. This comes in, and then I don't anticipate, and then I have to react. And then when we react, it's difficult to control ourselves.
Thank you so very much for that perspective. Okay, I think I have Patrick is raising his hands. And okay, Patrick, over to you. You can unmute yourself and let's learn from you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So this is my first time here, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm Patrick Njapa, and I'm on a mission of transforming 1,000 leaders into agent of change. So having this kind of conversation is very interesting. I wanted to give my few 2 cents here about the question, why don't men talk, if that's okay? I think that there are at least 2 reasons why men don't talk. One of them is our conditioning. I remember when we grew up, back home, we used to have this short poem reminding us that men don't cry. You don't have to cry. You need to be strong. You need to stay. Don't be weak. And sometimes they will tell you, don't act like a lady. You cry like a girl. So I think growing that way, we grew up with that kind of feeling that we need to stay strong at all costs, even when it is very tough, when we have to open our hearts and share with our wife, our friends, and so on and so forth. We don't do that because we feel like if we do it, we are weak. We need to stay strong. We think being vulnerable is being weak or is a weakness. I think one main reason that why men don't talk is that kind of conditioning. And this is happening subconsciously. We are not even aware of the fact that we are doing it. And sometimes when we want to cry, we are afraid of crying because it's like we are showing people that we are weak, but we don't have to do that. So for me, one thing is to get rid of that bad conditioning that is putting us in a very difficult spot. And there is a scientific evidence of the fact that when you cry, it is a kind of emotional relief, because they studied cry, tears, and they saw that there is a chemical in there that is kind of liberating us when we do. So we need to move in that direction. The second thing is, I think we don't talk because of our commitment. What do I mean by that? Back in the days, men used to be those going out, looking for hunting and bringing meat back at home, in the house to feed the family. So for us, it's very, very important to be in a position where we can take care of our families, take care of our kids, take care of our wife and everything. And when we don't do that, when we are in a position where we are not able to provide for our family, we are providers, we feel like something is missing and we are kind of ashamed. And because we are ashamed, we feel bad and we don't share that with others. We don't share that, especially with our wife, because we feel like we are failing our wife. We are not providing us. We are supposed to be providing. And this is a big thing. So I think being able to open our hearts and share also, even if we are not providing as we thought we could, is just a step. We can get there. And so for me, 2 reasons: one, our conditioning, and secondly, our pride and commitment.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for that wonderful contribution. Mr. Salama, I would like you to, maybe help us understand a little bit. From what I hear, Patrick shared with us just now, he talked about the conditioning, and he also talks about, we thinking that we have failed, right? So could it mean that we're carrying an undue weight of expectation, right, on ourselves? Okay, are we putting ourselves under burden? Could that be part of the reasons why we think we have failed in certain respects, and we think, oh no, we have to behave in a certain way? Is that what? Do you think so, Mr. Salaman?
I mean, I think there is someone who wanted to speak. Maybe that person can speak, and I can provide, I think it's Ben, right?
Yeah,
So,
Ben has his hand
but
up.
in terms of, I really agree with what Patrick said, because there is a kind of like a strong weight on men, like this, even in society. It did not start today, started before. We are provider. Sometimes my pastor says that we are fixers. When we see things, we want to fix it. And then when we cannot do that, we feel like we are vulnerable. But I like what Patrick said. It's not bad to show that we are vulnerable. I read a book called The Power of Vulnerability. So, but where do we show that? I have to explain the context, right? Before I start crying in front of like maybe the kids. I can cry in front of five. Would I cry in front of them if they really don't understand, if they are younger? Because they're, a child, first reference is parent. And then if the parents start kind of like crying, it can impact, it can affect the children down the road. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't cry. It's depending again in the context where we do it. And then if we done it in front of the whole family or public, most people should say that, yeah, this is understandable. So we saw like Obama cry. So are we kind of like saying that he's emotional or weak? No, because of the situation. So if we cry or if we do things that we shouldn't be doing, we're all humans, the context matters. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much for that perspective, sir. Okay, we have Ben Shegun with hand raised. Can you unmute yourself and let's hear you, sir?
Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my comment is going to touch on most of the things that came up from last time as well as today. And it's going to be very general. The first one I'd like to establish here is there is no perfect relationship. There is no perfect situation in life. Whereas we might have all the dreams and aspirations of having the very best in every circumstance, it doesn't pan out that way in reality. So whereas we have been conditioned in a certain way, maybe to be mute and not be expressive, situations would present that would really provoke or should inspire us to relearn, to kind of recondition our conditioning just because our situation has changed. Whereas men have been taught to be, very solid and, unemotional, situations we present in life, reality, that will probably invite us to be expressive in those areas that we have been taught to be tough. So that's the first thing. So when it comes to temperament, how we get things going in life, I think each person has to define their values. They have to define their goals. And I know that, in life we'll come across situations that we are not prepared for. But what are we coming into that situation with? Do we have our value system solid? And are we coming with a mindset of making specific changes? Let me go very, very specific now. Now, when it comes to relationship, just like the gentleman last time had mentioned, it would appear as if we are calling men to be docile. And that's not it. I think we are calling men to just rise up and take on their responsibility fully. Let's start from the point of view that when we learned those things, we were probably single, maybe we didn't even have a job, we didn't have wives, we didn't have children, but now we do have those things. We cannot afford to come with the same mindset. Oh, men should, be tough and tight all the time, So because we have a new environment, we have to begin to learn how do we make that environment work for us. So things like we have to come with a new heart of this is my own structure that I'm putting in place. When I was taught those things, I was made to conform to a structure that was set up by somebody else. Now this is mine. How am I going to make mine the very best that it can be? All right. So I think when we come into a relationship and it seems things are not working well, then we have to begin to redefine our values as individuals, not as a son, not as a
Oh, I think Ben.
That should change us. That should change us as men in the way that we build. Oh, sorry, my internet is unstable.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead. You're back.
Okay. So my invitation is that men should come. I'm very careful to advise men. Men would benefit more if we come with a mindset to make our own environment what we want it to be. So if we are coming with, how we were raised, okay, maybe the role model, our parents, our uncles, how they, we saw them. Of course, that would impact us. All right. That's why I was talking about unlearning some of the things we have learned, because now we are building our own structure. All right. So I think men should come with a little bit more of, kindness in how they form that environment. And we should be ready to shift ground a little bit. We should be ready to compromise, find middle ground. Okay. And that's when men want to initiate intentional communication. If things are not going the way we expect, let us put in place a situation where we'll be able to have a conversation, maybe with our spouse or with our friend that we are falling out with, and just say, hey, this does not seem to be working the way I envision it. You envision it. Can we talk and just see how we can make things work? I've addressed things on a general note, and I don't know how much sense I've made, but maybe as the conversation proceeds, we might be able to see how we can apply some of these things. But what I'm saying is there is no perfect situation. Wherever we find ourselves as men, we just have to make it work. Okay. And we have to ask ourselves, am I a maker or a breaker? Then if we are makers, then we should be ready to, bring some kindness, compromise, and just be ready to find a middle ground. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Ben. And please, I would like to start from where you stopped, and maybe Pastor Ben, you can also weigh in. So there is this school of thought that, we're trying to make some compromise here and there and things like that. How for those that are in a relationship, in a family setting, how does that impact our partners? Okay, is it just for the men to only make this compromise? Because from the previous sessions, we had questions along those lines like, oh, the man is always the one, making all the sacrifice, is always this, is always that. The women are not ready to shift ground. As a matter of fact, we had an example where somebody shared with us and said, oh, can you imagine two people leave, wherever country they came to, North America from, and they landed here, and we're all talking about the man being the one that has not adjusted. Like, they just got out of the plane, both of them, but the man is being said not to adjust, but the woman has already. So in that sense, Pastor Ben, can you shed more light and say, okay, is it only the man that should make the compromise in this case, or is it possible that the man is making compromise, the other party is not making compromise? And how do we balance these things to make sure that we retain our sanity and, you know, things don't degenerate?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things that I think Mr. Ben Shegun actually touched on some of it. I think the most important thing is our approach to the relationship dynamic really is. And I think we come there with a sense of entitlement. One of the things, first of all, we need to discover the difference between men and women. The first things first, women are multitaskers. So if they're multitaskers, we have to be realistic about it. Men like to face one task, finish that task, and go on to the next task. While women can multitask, they can do so many things at the same time, which means that they adapt easily. They adapt easily. And so that's first things first. So there has to be an understanding from the woman's side that, you know, men cannot adapt as quick as they can. Secondly, when you come from a mindset that, as Mr. Ben Shegun was saying, when you come from that mindset, it affects the way you view the world. It affects the way you view the world. I like the analogy that you were giving about filling a bottle with water when you fill it gently. I'd like to add to that analogy by putting a funnel.
Right.
So when you put a funnel in there, it kind of narrows it down. So the funnel stands for getting rid of the things that could hinder the water going into it. So it just focuses on the main issue. So for me, I think the mindset of which we go into a relationship is not just for the man, but also for the woman. It's all about, again, I'm going to use scripture. It's more blessed to give than to receive. The word blessed means it's more empowering to give than to receive. I think from the men's point of view, we go into a relationship with the fence about 10 feet high already in our mindset. Oh, I don't want to be seen as a mug. I don't want to be seen as a docile man. I want to be in control. I demand the respect. I need this, that, and the other. So with that mindset, when we come into the relationship, then it affects the way we adapt to new environments and adapt to changes. For example, a change where you were the breadwinner and then you're not the breadwinner. It affects, because of the mindset you had before, you become resentful. And then whatever happens, whatever conversations happens or situation happens, it comes from that resentment.
Totally. Thank you so much for that wonderful perspective. Grace only would like to contribute. Please, can you unmute yourself and let's hear you? Grace? Hello?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for that delay. I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank my pastor, Pastor Ben, and I want to thank Ruth for this, and the Brotherhood Connect, everybody. I have a different view to all these. Somehow it does connect, but I still will branch from everything that's been said. I'd like to start from my pastor, which I so much have respect for. He's a father and he's a good advisor and he's a supporter, Pastor Ben. But I believe that a leadership is different from breadwinner. I was raised to be a leader, and I was raised to believe that God could give anybody the grace to be the one that has the more money. Like my father is very educated and is a chartered accountant, and my mother is just a standard 3. I don't know what standard 3 is in those days, but she's always a businesswoman, and she's always not broke. But my father lives in salary, and but the leadership skill is one, and providing is another thing. So also, I would also like to debunk, in my own belief, that when that the situation that cause problem between a man and a woman, it's only about 10 feet high, that we want to bring what's in Africa. It's our culture, it's part of it, but it's not. Most of the time, children cause problem between husband and wife, and it cause problem because of different belief, different mentality, because of uh, misunderstanding, and because the woman is not getting it. Sometimes it's the man that is not getting it. So and when the kids see this, they see somewhere is cracked, they take advantage, problems start. Sometimes I also don't believe that only women can multitask. I think it's a personality thing. Multitasking has to do with individuality, and people, it depends on people. I multitask. I can go everywhere. I can do many things. I want to study this. I want to do that. But my wife also believes in facing one thing. You can stay with $1, even if she has to be drinking Gary for the rest of her life to now be saving one kobo. That is my wife, but I don't believe in that. I believe in moving forward. So that brings me to everybody's experience is what they advise marriage from, which I have always gone against. When people are talking to me, I sift out what I sense to be a personal thing. But here, I'll go back to the topic that says that why do men not talk? I also don't believe that men don't talk because they say we should not cry. I think it's a different analogy. Men don't cry when, don't let them see you crying if you lose your job. Don't let them see you crying if you're facing challenges. It's different from when men don't talk because they are being taught to accept what is not supposed to be accepted. You have a wife who makes you feel like you're a bad person before your children. Every good thing you've brought to her about how to progress, she's not taking it. She decided to be a stone who is not turning. So those are the example of why men don't talk. They've tried to contribute. Even men listen to advice outside and try to change so that they can be, because there's this thing going on the internet these days. An example will be when a man wants to marry, he sees a woman that's not educated but that has a good behavior, and he goes for it. Women don't only marry men that has good behavior, they marry men who can take care of them. So which means we men, we don't marry for material things or things that we see. We marry for things that will support us, that will give us rest of mind. So by the time we get married and we are beginning to go through all these things, we then beginning to think that, what is the essence of me talking? I'll bring myself into the situation again. When I talk to my children and they don't listen, and for example, my wife says that, leave them, just face me. This is a case you should support me to talk to them. The Bible talks about two hands coming together. And you're not supporting me. You're saying that the way I spoke is too harsh, it's too harsh. And these children they are doing it day and night, day and out, and you're telling me, don't worry, they will soon leave. How many years remaining? Where is the training? Are you not seeing what I'm saying? In that kind of situation, I have spoken to few people and they've told me, your woman sees a lot, your woman raised them, you are not there. So when I see that I'm beginning to be seen as the problem, I will stop talking so that I don't lose friends. I don't lose people who love me. Some people will not care, but they will not they will not talk again. So why do men stop talking? We stop, or do men don't, why as men stop talking? We stop talking when we feel like we are not, the other side is like a marble. When you throw water to a marble, it falls down, it doesn't go in. So it's not because we lost our job. It's not because we lost our power. That's not the reason I see. From my experience, from my friends' experience, I've seen men that are bullies, yes. I've seen men that are blindly following culture, the wrong culture, yes, in Western world, even in Nigeria there, where you don't have a job, and yet your woman will go from morning till night. You still want to steal her money and bully her. It's not only when we come to Canada, but let's look at the men who have done right. It is not only by providing. It is men come to Western world. They do. Everybody knows that when you move, you have to change. You have to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. But why do men stop talking? I believe that men stop talking. The good ones, the ones who have people like Pastor Ben, Pastor D, and good people to advise them, they stop talking because the opposite side, which is our wife and other advisors, they are beginning to see us as we are not yielding to the negativity of the advice they are giving us, or the woman who doesn't care. That's my own. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful contribution, Grace, only. And yeah, we will, I would like, Pastor Ben and Mr. Salaman respond to that before I read out the comments we have in the chat box. What are your thoughts on what we just heard? And my
Mr.
question,
sorry, Mr. Aziz is here too.
Oh, Mr. Aziz. Okay, yeah, you're welcome, sir. We tried to introduce you earlier, before, but thank you for joining us. And please, we would also want you to speak on this as well. I think I can see Dr. Julius Ogunariwo as well. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir. You're welcome. Pastor Ben, Mr. Salaman, and Mr. Aziz, you heard Grace only speak, and that was very in-depth. But we want you to know, what are your thoughts on what you just shared? And I have a question. And my question is keeping quiet the solution to those kind of situations? Does it make it better in any way? And yeah, let's learn from you, sir. Pastor Ben, maybe you go first, and we hear from Alhaji Aziz next, and Mr. Salaman, last.
So sorry, maybe I might be preempting because I saw something on the chat also. Right. And I want somebody was talking about, does Ruth House help bring couples together rather than get them separated? The answer is an emphatic yes. Right. There, and I will just refer them to go to the website or talk to somebody at Ruth House, and they can go in depth with that. What's Grace only has said, yes, very makes a lot of sense. But what I would say, as I was saying, is that earlier on, is that it's more blessed to give than to receive. Is that when you see situations like that, of course, if it's repetitive, because men do that, when something is repetitive, they keep quiet, they don't talk about it, but then the resentment builds up. And what you're trying to avoid ends up happening. It just takes one little thing about it, I don't like the way, for example, one particular example he gave was that maybe his wife tells him off in front of the kids. Maybe the best thing is to, when you're together, rather than react, when you're together alone, maybe discuss that this is how it makes me feel, and this is how it affects the children. We're trying to work on the children being better husbands, better wives, or better people in society. And if you're not seeing this point of view, or you undermine me in front of the kids, it's counterproductive. So that's the one thing that I would suggest in that scenario, because chances are there may be a reason why she reacted that way. Maybe I don't know what the reasons are, but there could be a reason she reacted that way, and hearing from her could also help you understand what's going on. So that's so I'll leave others to contribute further on that.
All right, thank you so much for your thoughts. Alhaji Aziz, can we hear from you, sir? Hello. Okay, Mr. Salaman, let's have your thoughts on this while we.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, Salaman can go. Right. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. If you are here, you can go ahead, sir. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and as I mentioned, I'm sorry I joined very late. So I didn't start from the beginning, but in the last 15 minutes, I could understand the context that we are talking about. So I agreed with one of the speakers, whose names I forgot now, that said about multitasking is not really limited to women, just to do with individuals. That's my opinion. And we have expectation. The only submission I want to say here is that we should try to avoid generalization. So at times, and that is the way human minds work, we try to use one size fits all to all issues. And I think experience has shown that that may not be appropriate in every situation. Every marriage is unique. So why men don't talk? There are 1,001 reasons which we cannot exhaust here. So what I want to say is that when men utter up so many things, a lot of issues, either because they don't want to be seen as being aggressive, either they are tired of talking, and the talking is becoming a problem to the wife, saying, you talk too much. Are you a woman? So the man goes into his shell and stop talking. And if the man doesn't talk again, the woman will say, you are just looking, we even ask you questions, you will not talk. So in some situations, not in all cases, men are even confused when they should talk and when they should not talk. And following the last conversation, the last experience I had, what I've just heard from one of the speakers, saying that at times, some women set the fathers against the children. What I've witnessed in the last couple of years is that some women, not all of them, try to compete for the attention of the children. And to quote what the speaker said now, that in an attempt to make the man look back. So if the father came from a disciplinarian parent and want to transfer the same discipline to the children, and the wife came from the background of where she was just being treated as a queen, no, come on, don't do it, then definitely two of them will need to sit down together and agree what type of children do we want to raise and find a middle course. One thing is, in conclusion, and I want to repeat what I said last month when we had this. For as long as we continue to see marriage as transactional. There will continue to be crisis. Transaction is give me this, I give you that. But if the man is in marriage and say, okay, whatever it takes, I will make this marriage work. Whatever it takes, I will make this marriage work. Then you look beyond the issues. I don't want to use the word problem. I rather say issues and challenges. There will be challenges. Whether you are an imam, whether you are a pastor, whether you are educated, even if you are uneducated, literate, non-illiterate, all over the world, right? There are challenges in marriage. So it's not only unique to us. I want us to focus on whatever it takes, I will make this marriage work. It has to be intentional. It has to be intentional. So that's just what I want to submit. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your thoughts. And Mr. Salaman, do you want to weigh in on that, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Raja, for sharing that. What I would say is no matter where we are right now in terms of relationship, no matter who we are, I think we all are on the way of becoming better or becoming worse. And I want to just pinpoint the fact that, as everyone said here, relationship. And then I refer that as a farmer's son, that his relationship is like a seed. Then when we decide to get or to start family, we sow the seed. But guess what? A seed, you don't just sow a seed and then you expect that you're gonna harvest tomorrow, and then you don't just sow a seed and then just wait that you don't take care of it. Wow. So I think
because when it's sunny, I have to wear my glasses every day.
Thank you. I think as we are not familiar with farming, maybe we're familiar with gardening, just around us we see trees. We have to take care of our relationship and then pay the price for it. And then accept the fact that time will come when we don't understand everything, but we have to commit that we'll do our best to make it work. And when we have that commitment, we'll give some room to grow and then to become better. We have to take care of our relationship, and then, as I said before, take care of first ourselves or the other person. And then when we do that, usually, I don't say everything all the time, but most of the time and then we have to cultivate it. We have to remove what we don't want, like weed, and then water the plants. So, and then to keep in mind that it's like season, right? Like any relationship is like season. Winter will come, summer will come, spring will come, and then so we have to make sure that we know, and then what we want, especially what we want. If we go back to the Bible, even Jesus Christ will ask people who are looking for eating, what do you want? What do you want? But do we really know what we want? As a mentor in the community, just to wrap up, as a mentor in the community, as a motivational speaker, guess what? Most people, 80% are not making that up. It's all the studies. More than 80%, I'm being relative of people don't know what they want just for themselves. So then go ask a couple what they want. It's become difficult. So we have to sit down and then design that. What type of family do you want? What type of couple maybe do you want? Some people get into the marriage, move out counseling, and then, but that is not an issue, can still work it out. So that's what I would say. And then That being said, I think this session is really important. Just a quick suggestion, maybe the other one, we can create small groups depending on the timing that we have, to allow everyone to talk in the group and then to have someone who can come with reports. Then it's help everyone to participate and then to ask questions. That would be
Beautiful. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Salaman. I'm going to read very quickly from the chat box. I know we're running out of time, but we can still make the best of this interaction as we approach the end of the meeting. Sunday would say a friend, relocated. I think they came to Canada, and it seems all his business and all his textile job, which was left, is now a regret. The wife is troublesome. Please, where does he go? He doesn't want to go to a place where no Bible or good standard is used to mentor them, or where they will be asked, what do you want? When actually they are both hungry. Realistically speaking, when people are hungry, when both parties are hungry, there's moment of insanity, right? So sound decisions will definitely be lacking. So Pastor Ben, what do you think? And what help can we offer this our friend to share with their own friend, and whatever resources available for us to learn from?
So I have it on reliable authority. Ruth House does have biblical as well as whatever you want in terms of counseling there, and they also try to ask where you go from there. So there's so I would encourage Tunde's friend to really talk to Ruth's House. I think we need to really be very careful with this emotion called anger. And I love what you said earlier. When we're angry, we say stuff that are not coming from that are irrational. They're not, they don't really help the situation, even though the person is voicing out their emotion because they want the situation to turn around. So it's usually counterproductive. So I would encourage that, first of all, that they take advantage of entities like Ruth's House. The other thing I want to add there also is to take an inward look from where you're coming from, because most of the time, going back to that thing about using the funnel is supposed to filter everything else away, Where is all that coming from? I read a book some years back called Healthy Me, Healthy Us by Les Parrott. And it's very, very important that you begin to look at yourself. Where is that coming from? What I found in talking to couples is they are not honest with who they are. They're really not honest with who they are. What they continue to do is justify why they react the way they react. And the best way to bring health into a situation is to be honest with whatever, who we are, how we deal with situations. It's like going to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, the reason why you're having this kind of problem with your health is because you eat certain stuff. And you begin to say, no, it's not what I eat. It's because the situation outside is making me. So that's the most important thing with couples, is really, really understanding that, you need to be healthy within yourself emotionally and mentally. And you cannot understand what you're doing by yourself. Somebody has to point it out to you. It's like watching a game. It's easy to be a couch side coach when you're watching the game because you have a better view of the game because you're a spectator, rather than somebody who's actually in the game. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on this. And we've been talking about why men don't talk. We're wrapping this up, shortly. Elias, you have your hands up and we want to hear from you. Can you unmute yourself and let's talk? Elias?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I am really blessed with the pastor and the other visitors who joined us today and they were with us the last time. The thing here is that the literature says that if you take a lot and you keep it in you, if you start putting droplets of water in a bottle and not allowing the effervescence to go out that bottle, there will come a time where it will be too much for the person who is receiving those challenges to a point. I'll give you an example of one of our brothers in the United States, what happened to the family, where he actually heard that his son was going to graduate high school, and the son told the father that you don't need to come. The other dad will come, right? And so what happens here is that if we accumulate, and even our wives, right? Everybody, our children, they have their own challenges that they're going through. But if we, just like we are discussing here, if we do not actually have a vent that we can actually vent in and make sure that the challenges, the problems that we have, the things that we have not worked on, or the things that we are going to work on, if we do not leave a challenge, a channel, a forum in our home or in our classroom, it becomes a problem which will it becomes a problem which will start killing the humanness of that individual who is on the receiving side. And that is and sometimes what I know is that it turns into mental health and even violence. Without any problem, it becomes that way. So for us, the men, we take a lot. Women also take a lot. But do we have a channel in our home that we can actually, at night, for 3 minutes, say, hey, what I did yesterday was not good. I want you to forgive me, right? If we do not go in and look at those things that are impacting us negatively, we will make some progress, but much progress will be left without us looking into it and then trying to keep the negativity in our responses in our homes. So I'm just reading something here, and that tells me that silence is not silence. We have to actually understand that when you are silent, it doesn't mean that you are not impacted by what is going through in your home. And that is what I wanted to say. But again, what we have to understand is that individuals have, within the home, have their own way of approaching challenges that come to the family. So, and we have to look at that, and then we look at if that child, if that mom, if that uncle has a valid reason for him to be silent. Right? And when we people are not talking at home, it doesn't mean that they don't understand or they don't comprehend that that problem is a very big challenge. It takes a long time for us to get to that point where we understand the point of view of the children, the point of view of the wife, and the point of view of even uncle and grandparents who are living with us. Without that, I think that it will take us a very long time. There are times that when I want to, there are times that when I want to talk to my children, I talk to them. They're standing up and walking around. Maybe my wife is rushing to go to work, but I have something very important to tell her. I let her go. And then when she comes back, we will actually sit down and look at that situation and get the best way to actually deal with that behavior.
Oh, thank you so much.
Hello.
As what I hear you say is that the timing of some of this conversation is also important, right?
Yes.
It's important that the conversation is very, it's important, but we also want to make sure that we're having this conversation at the right time. We have Kevin, we have your hands up. Can you unmute yourself and maybe in a minute share with us as we allow other people to share their thoughts on this, and we can wrap it up together.
Yes, I have a question. I think it's something that a lot of people are dealing with either consciously or subconsciously. Right from the 90s, which was a very impactful part of my upbringing, there was a lot of media, a lot of songs, a lot of talk about how men are bad. Men are not doing enough sexually, men are too bossy, society is too patriarchal, all the evils that men do, men cause wars, men are aggressive. We talked about, domestic abuse. And, it's always, there's so much negative press, to the extent that it has kind of shaped a lot of psyche, in the fact that, okay, a lot of men grow up, okay, am I sexually competent? A lot of, I hear a lot of men ask this, there's a lot of pressure because there's no everything, you are held responsible for everything wrong. And then you hear about the domestic abuse thing. And because of that, men don't want to, they try their very hardest to control themselves, which leads to a lot of repression, especially those that don't know how to handle matters without being violent. So especially for the men that grew up in environments where everything is settled physically, either by beating or by fighting or things like that. Then you come into this new environment and you even find out that, especially over here, that this slightest argument with your wife can lead you to being arrested, and then your kids are taken away from you and things like that. With all these, and then even in terms of work, even at the office, you are very conscious. So I believe a lot of men are in a position whereby they are tiptoeing around their entire life. Everything is tiptoeing, like a balancing act. And in dealing with all those things, both conscious and subconscious, that you've accumulated over the years from childhood up to this point, about how negative you are and everything. And then you keep hearing the stories, and then you keep hearing, you are now aware of the fact that someone can just make an accusation at you and you can be dealt with. Sometimes, even at work, you are wondering, what if somebody goes behind you to whisper to management and they just fire you for nothing? Having all these things in your subconscious and consciousness, how do you manage, how does the average man manage this thing, manage this circumstance or the impact and all that? How is all that balanced? Because we talk about men not being able to speak up, but you're actually scared that if you if you speak up and it becomes an argument, someone can just call the police and your life is over. How do you deal with the not just any individual part, but the total sum of this psychological impact? How is it dealt with? How is it handled?
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that question. Okay, Pastor Ben, you want to share your thoughts on that?
I think, and very right. Every observation that you've made there is very right, especially with the advent of the Me Too movement and all of that. However, one of the things, again, I'm going to come from a biblical point of view. There's a scripture that says a false balance is an abomination to God. Yeah. Now, the one thing that is, there's another scripture, if you're familiar with, if anybody who's familiar with Bible stories, about the story of Job, he says, what I greatly feared has come upon me. Now, if you walk around with that fear that I don't know what's going to happen, it will end up happening to you. I think the most important thing really is to have a balanced approach to everything. That means that, and one of the best ways to have a balanced approach to everything is everything does not appear as they seem. Everything does not appear as they seem. Now, the question you look at from where you're from growing up in the 90s and all of that is, was there domestic abuse? Yes. Was there, were people, was there things like abuse in the workplace? Yes, these things are very, very true. However, that doesn't mean that's the whole truth. Because we got to look at it from the other side, that there are also people who didn't do those things. Because one is loud doesn't make it the truth. So you can't allow the facts to get in the way of the truth of the matter. And the best way to deal with it is, what is your approach? How do you approach it? What's the balanced way to deal with it? And the balanced way to deal with it is to, first of all, know that may happen. Is to, number one, acknowledge that happens. And the reason we know that things happen is to tell us how not to perpetuate, I beg your pardon, what's already happened. And so for me, it's all about having that balance. And you have balance by asking questions and clarifying stuff, for example, what's appropriate. You can't, for example, in the workplace, when you start talking about a woman's body parts, that's definitely inappropriate. So you just have to take away the wheat, separate the wheat from the chaff, as it were. So have a balanced approach to everything, and it just means just being a decent human being.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Is understood. That is understood and accepted. But that's the fact that you're a decent human being doesn't remove the fact that someone can make a false accusation at you or blow whatever you have out of proportion. And even in certain environments, especially in the larger companies, in the multinational, things are so overbalanced that you will even notice a trend even in the kind of men that they like to retain. The more gruff and macho men seem to find it tougher to survive in those environments. And if you are from a certain generation where that's the kind of body language or output you tend to exhibit, you find it more, you find yourself a little bit more isolated. That's even at the workplace. And even when people get home, there's still that concern because, whether we like it or not, I agree we're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. But the major concern here is that even when you think you're doing the right thing, let me emphasize the word think, things can still work against you. There's that concern, and it is a psychological burden that is carried that can really be damaging, and it can also contribute to people being silent until maybe they explode or something later on down the line.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to allow Elijah Aziz weigh in on this as well. Can we have your thoughts, please, before we go? Peter, we acknowledge your hands up. I think Grace would also like to say something, but we'll hear from Elijah Aziz, then we hear the two of you, then we'll wrap it up, please. Are you there? Mr. Aziz, are you there? Okay, all right. Grace, can you have a word? Then Peter, then we will bring this to a close.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll just say few things. So tiptoeing that Mr. Kevin mentioned, I'm one of the people that is living in that kind of lifestyle. I feel very afraid because sometimes inside me, I feel like I don't have a support. If I don't have a support at home, if I lose my job today, so even where I'm supposed to talk at work, I'm afraid to talk, even though it's the right thing. So I'm just shutting down. I'm scared, and I'm also scared if I lose my job today, what will become of me? That being said, that's by the way. I also want to say, as I said earlier, I know that most of our fathers here mentioned that. Okay, what they didn't mention is that before we go mute, men like to not all men just go into violence or argument. Men like to find solution. We talk a lot. We like to bring our women together, our children together, and explain and explain. And I want us to know here that most men that have spoken, most good men that have spoken and find solution, stop talking. And it's not because they are building a propane. No, it's not because it's not because they have the wrong approach. It's because the other part is not reciprocating. They've talked for so much, and not all of them are fighting. Another thing I would like to say is that we should take the word into the people you talk to will teach you according to the experience. I've had people teaching me to go do this, to go do this, to go do that. But fortunately for me, I also had few people. And one of the people I had that spoke to me was a woman who found herself with Ruth House. So I want to say, take the word out. I was as scared to go to Ruth House long time ago because of the word agency, because I know what those kind of agency will do. But I want us men here to take the word out. To Ruth House, they did two things for me. They did formality, and then they did culture. Three things: culture, and then they did they did what is called mothers and fathers to me. They did not just start dealing with me in a Canadian way and putting me to book. And they are still on me right now. So if there are many men out there that are going through this and they are going to individual people, one of the people that ruined my marriage was my pastor and the wife, because they used emotion and they yelled at me and they were supporting my wife and my children and telling me, this is Canada, she's 21, she's this. Children that just came to Canada and wife that they are less than 3 months, 5 months, you are saying they are Canadian. What kind of advice is that? You might know Bible a lot, but are you doing the right thing to understand the other way that you are supposed to understand? So they are the first person who killed my morale and my belief. So I want us to take the word out and tell people that if you are scared to talk to individual or you're scared, Ruth House will approach you in a cultural way, formal way. They will help you to become and make you, like they will say to the women who are in abuse, that I believe you. Ruth House want to believe you, and they will say a lot of things. So, but my final word here is that men don't always keep quiet because they want to burst one day. They are keeping quiet because they've been talking and finding solution. And I want our elders in the community to also help us and not think that we are the problem because we are young or because we have anger. No, thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that. So we just have two contributions. Please, let's make it short from Peter and Dr. Julius Ogunariwo. Peter, can you quickly go, please? We have the recording available, so you can always watch after now. So Peter, very quickly, just a minute, please. Peter, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. I think it's a good, very good session. My first time here. Just two things I quickly want to speak to. Somebody talked about leadership earlier on, and I'm kind of connected with that. But one thing that came to my mind after that is like we need to realize that leadership at work is different from leadership at home. Okay. So there are things that we need to put into consideration. We might, maybe we have it going well at work and we're wondering what's going on. Maybe we're trying to apply the same strategies that has worked, in the workplace. And we're trying to apply the same thing, but just a quick reminder that, it is different. We need to learn how to make it work in the home, like leadership work in the home. And then other thing that comes to my mind is talking about, the role of the man in terms of being a breadwinner. And I want to give us a challenge that, I believe the word breadwinner is, for me, what I've understood, because, my wife, there was a time when I just got into business, my wife basically was the one, what's it called? Salary was what we were basically depending on, and that time I had to learn relearn what a breadwinner is. And one of the things that comes to my mind around breadwinner, somebody mentioned earlier the word hunter. The hunter doesn't have a set way that they are going to. The hunter will have a strategy, but they don't have they can't get here and say oh, this is where I'm going to get the antelope, this is where I'm going to get the, they just go around working on their strategy. So even if the wife or, and where we have seen ourselves oh, I'm the one that brings the money home, and then maybe that role is changing and the wife is the one bringing the money home or bring the, we need to kind of see how can I notch things up. I think that's what we should be trying to see. How can I notch things up as the hunter, as the one that usually doesn't have a set way, the strategies, the leadership, how can I redefine what my role is without losing that role of the breadwinner? How can I take things to the next level in terms of my role? Because one of the things I've discovered over time is that anything that men do, there's a tendency in the society that women takes it up. There's a tendency before men used to only be the one to wear pants. Before we know it, women are doing it. Before, only men used to bring the money home. The women do it. Before, we only see men in the place of politics, government, things like that. Later on, women started doing it. So I've come to learn that I think women will kind of come to that, but for us, it's not to give up. It's for us to step up things, and it's for us to challenge. There was a time my friends and I were talking, this was a long time ago, and my friend asked, can you marry a doctor that makes more than you? I said, oh, that's a good question. And I thought about that. I was like, yeah, I will. And the question was okay, how will you handle when your wife makes more than you? I said, well, if it's about making more than me, then maybe that means that, if I'm concerned about my wife making more than me, then that means I need to step up my, how to make more than my wife, if that is what is concerned to me. But I don't believe that should be, I mean, at least to me personally, it's not a concern. If my wife makes more money than me, if I have, you know, it's not a concern to me. At the end of the day, we have a common pause that we're coming into. So, but what I would just want to, not to talk too much or to go too far, and just to encourage us and to challenge us to rethink our role without losing, not to be narrow-minded about our role as leader, as the provider, as the protector, as the, you know, there are so many things now that women can do, that some of these things before, we are the one that, you know, but we shouldn't use that as a threat, but we should see it as an opportunity for us to rethink this thing and step up in our role as men. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful contribution. I really appreciate that perspective as well. I mean, there's really no need for competition. I think Pastor Ben addressed that in the first. Please, you can go back and watch the video. He addressed that very clearly. I remembered very well the statement he made. There is no need for competition. And Alhaji Aziz also mentioned it earlier. Marriage is not, or relationship is not transactional. Okay, it's not, there's no need, oh, you make more, I make, then we want to start struggling. And because at the end of the day, we're going to leave what is most important and be chasing, you know, shadows, right? We're here to support each other. Lastly, we want to hear from the elder, you know, our elders in the house, Dr. Julius. We would like to hear from you as we wrap up this session today. Thank you, sir.
First of all, I apologize for raising my hand after you have already decided how many more hands you wanted, but I thought it would be unfair for me to continue to keep quiet, especially when I heard a lot of things that I think I should contribute to. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm not on camera, but I'm assuming that some of you will know me as Dr. O. I've been married for 54 years. I've lived in 3 countries in the world. I got married in England, lived there for 4 years, went back to Nigeria, lived there for 14 years. And I've lived in Canada for 34 years. I'm also married to a non-Nigerian who, by all standards, if I'm doing something wrong, she knows her rights easily to call the police and kind of stuff like that. But that has not happened. By virtue of my position as an elder in the community, I'm also a go-to person. I think there was a time that there was no month I will not intervene in a marital relationship in my house. People will come to me all the time. So I've had both things. I've seen anything you can imagine in a marriage between us. It didn't used to be like this. When I give speeches about what it used to be also in Canada among Nigerians and what is it now, it didn't used to be like this. Of course, it's not surprising because the more people you have, of course, the frequency of any kind of thing will increase.
Sure.
But what has happened, I gave my background because it is necessary. The reason why I said that is I've lived a different place. In England, if you touch a woman, you are going to be in trouble. In Canada, you will do that. In Nigeria, if then a woman goes home and reports, they say, yeah, okay, what did you do to him? You know, maybe you say, it's not your husband. You are supposed to respect and do all kind of thing. But that's not here. Most men are still going about their business of marriage here without problems. So it's not, and I will say that an average woman, there's no woman who wants to live alone by kicking her husband out, because the responsibility of parenthood becomes her own responsibility alone. In most cases, even resources, because sometimes the husband, once he's kicked out, sometimes he doesn't bring out as much money if he has to bring anything at all. Therefore, it's not true to say that women just like to kick their husbands out, find any quick opportunity to call the police and stuff like that. In most cases, it's only as a last resort. What I have observed in most cases is that some men are not ready to change from what they were. There are a few women who want to take advantage of the fact that you have been oppressing me in Nigeria. Now we're here where my voice can be louder than yours, but there are not that many. What I want to appeal to all of you is that relationship, marriage is a partnership. where everybody contributes equally. From inception of our marriage, we had kept a common purse. A lot of couples now will not want to do that. Nigerian women will tell you that if you do that and your husband decides to go and marry a second wife, after all you put in the efforts into it, you will lose. But because my wife did not think of that, because when you're able to keep a common purse, there are a lot of things you can achieve together, which you can't achieve alone. Of course, when you do that, you also have to be careful, because as a man, you can't be say, I'm the breadwinner when the money is being contributed together. And it's not every woman you can do that with. I always agree, because if the woman you go out and buy clothes or shoes all the time, then you are not left with enough money to pay your mortgage and stuff. So there's a balancing act. But what is important is to make sure that as the leader of the house, you are the leader of the house. God has made you the leader as a man. And in playing that kind of role, there's responsibility that comes to it. I looked at my wife, lost both parents during our courtship. I'm 3 years older than my wife. So from that time, I say from now on, I am the father and mother to this woman. I look at also as my sister. If you treat your wife as your sister, there are certain things you will not want to do, because when you are growing with your sister, how much time do you people fight and stuff like that? At the end of the day, you make it up because you are the same parent. If you look at your wife the same way, most of the problems are going to be trouble. I'm not saying that there will not be problem, because there are some women who are very stubborn. No matter what you do, you can't get them. But if you are living in Nigeria, you are living well together. Coming to Canada should not be something. It's because when you come to Canada, somebody wants to say, oh yeah, there's a lot of freedom here. Sometimes the woman that does that, sometimes the man that doesn't want to change from what he was doing at home. Either way, just know that before you start going to the police or anybody like that, start from community leadership, because you have a lot of wealth of experience. Talk to some of the pastors. It's not all the pastors that are going to just say that the woman is always right or something like that. It's not all of them. At the end of the day, don't think that anybody who's trying to counsel you is favoring your wife. I'm talking now because we are mostly men in this particular place, and the same goes for the woman. At the end of the day, think of the children, because when two elephants fight, it's always the grass that suffers, right? When husband and wife cannot cooperate and they kick one of them out, then it's the children that suffer. And an Igbo adage, I say Igbo adage, sometimes they say it's not, says that a dog trained by a woman, not the back. In other words, they are saying that the presence of a man in the house is very, very important, right? You can't go. The other thing people tend to forget is that when you are home, we make more money than our wives. But when we're here, even when we do that, remember that the wives at home, their responsibility was not as much, because they have house help. Here, they don't have house help. Some of the time they don't go to jobs. Here, they have to go to jobs. At home, going to sports and participating in something is not as common. Here, they have to do it, because otherwise their children will not be able to compete with their peers. With a woman doing a lot of that, going to work, coming back home, and expecting her to be exactly the same woman that she was in Nigeria, it's not realistic. That is where the give and take comes to it. I appreciate your time. I know I've spoken too long already, but I hope that you can benefit a few things of what I've said. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julius. I'm somebody that I have known you from afar, so it's good to hear you speak and share your wealth of experience with us. Thank you so much for that elderly perspective to things. And I believe on that note, that's going to be a very good note to wrap things up today. Thank you, everyone that has been a part of this. Please, my appeal is we have things going on. We need to keep these conversations going. If there's a need for us to have a part 3, we will have it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes, Mr. Temi, just before you wrap it up, the last time we had a lot of feedback from the people who attended the last session. And so they wanted to have this conversation every 2 weeks. They feel that having it monthly is too long, and then people like we might forget what we just have to continue the conversation that we should like flow easily, right? So
Totally.
we are thinking of like having this session again in the next 2 weeks. And so the panel members and the moderators will be sent to you guys as maybe early next week. So we're going to have this conversation in 2 weeks.
Totally. Thank you so much, Helvis, for that. So please, we've heard from Ruth House directly. We're going to have this conversation again. We will love to have more of our elders, Dr. Julius, and all the elders in the house to join us again. We want to learn from you, and that's the essence of having this conversation. I can see people are celebrating having this every fortnight. It's very critical for us to continue to talk about this. We want to get better. That's the aim of everything, right? We want to get better, and we also want to pass this down the line to future generations. And thank you everyone that has participated, asked questions, and contributed in one way or the other. We thank you. We love you. We're happy to see you. I think we had about 44 persons on the call, and we will continue to be here to support. Please, the number for Ruth House has been dropped. It's a 24 hours line. If you're going through any challenge at all, or you want to have somebody to talk to, please reach out. Like I mentioned at the last session, when you call Ruth House as a man or as a brother, don't always have the mindset that you're going to speak to a woman, okay? There are men, there are resource persons, there are elders in the community that you're going to speak with that will be able to guide you and, put you through how to handle situations that may seem a bit naughty for us to do. On that note, I'm going to ask our resource persons, Pastor Ben, Mr. Salaman, Alhaji Aziz, I don't know, do we have anything to say before we call it a close today? Do we have anything to add very quickly, please?
Nothing. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. Just to make sure that we remember all Dr. O has said. Please, let's make sure that we are very conscious and intentionally said, look, this marriage will work in the interest of the future of our children. If there's none, you need your peace. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pastor Ben. Closing.
Thank everyone. Yes, and I also echo what Alhaji Aziz says. We really had a broader view from our daddy, Dr. O, and that it will be best for us to take all these things, not just to hear them, but also to practice them.
Totally. You. And Mr. Salaman, closing remarks from you, sir.
I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to be part of it and to learn from other people. Thank you for having me. And I hope we'll continue to boost each other up. So then we will be a reference for our children and for the generation to come.
Totally. Thank you so much, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. If we allocate 4 hours for this, we will not, we're not going to still have enough time to go over everything. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot. We've unlearned certain things and we've relearned, a few things. Let's keep the conversation going and we meet again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you and have a beautiful day and let's enjoy, the weather that we have. I don't know if it's still the summer weather or it's still or it's still winter, right? But it's been interesting. Let's make the best of everything that we have and have some fun and bond with our families. Thank you and hope to see you again soon. Yeah, bye.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Pastor D. So you, I didn't know you were actually on the call. And I didn't know that. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Oh, T, thank you.
Well done. Keep up the good work.
Thanks for joining the call. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you again in 2 weeks and let's keep the conversation going.